Hi! Yee! We're focusing. Welcome. We're going to be talking about Brusho today. Brusho is a really cool product. It is a crystal watercolor. This is the starter kit. And hey Ed, I see that you yes. Cheers. I have some positive energy drink to go with the drink. Anyhoozle, I wanted to begin with letting people know about Brusho. It is a crystal watercolor that comes in these cute little containers, and it's a dry watercolor, and then you wet it to get it moving and shaking. So I'm a really big fan of Ed Gunderson's art and his use of Brusho, as well as Emily Rosinbaum of EPR Studios work with the Brusho. They just both knock it out of the park, and it's so inspiring, so I wanted to give them a little shout out. So I'm going to show you. I don't really have things planned, because if I have things planned, things don't work. So I'm just going to go with the flow. So I wanted to show you a couple things before we started to play, and I'm going to jump down to here. This is a piece, one of my favorite watercolors ever, by Ed Gunderson here, and I just absolutely love it. So I wanted to share that with you. This is a color chart that he kindly did for me, and I really like this because it really illustrates the coolness of what Brusho can do. I'm going to put this at an angle and kind of bring it up to the camera. This is black, and as you can see, there's a lot of colors in there that make the black. The gray is super neato too, because it's gray, but it still has some colors in it. And then, for example, this is a violet, and it has some red and a little bit of blues in here, and it's just outstandingly gorgeous stuff. I wanted to show you that. This is one of Emily's pieces that she gave me, and I love it. She uses it as a background typically, and in between. This is one of her earlier pieces, and it's one of my favorites. And then this is a piece that I did in Emily's class. This is my favorite one that I ever did in her class, using Brusho. So I hope Emily does some more workshops when we open up from this pandemic. But in the meantime, you can kind of learn and experiment by yourself to figure some things out, and I'll give you some tips too. But Emily's classes are well worth taking. I also want to show you, this is a piece that Alicia Gates did. What I really like about this particular piece is that she did a whole sheet of Brusho and cut it up and assembled it into beautiful flowers. She used watercolor paper, which I do recommend, and she also used Bristol paper, which I didn't even think to use, but that left a really neat look for her flowers. And then she mounted it on a little board. And I also want to show you something too, which I'm not going to cover tonight because I don't do stencils. Sorry, not sorry. It's just not in my scope of things. I believe that people have the power to kind of make their own, and not a generic 1,000-made stencil. But this is one that I did at a trade show that I went to. This is a watercolor board, and this is a pineapple. I'm a big fan of pineapples, so I did a pineapple. So what I did was I put down the stencil, and the stencil covered where the white is, and then I sprinkled on the color, and then I used a spritzer bottle to spritz it and activate it, and then I pulled the stencil straight up, and then it left the white marks. I've also seen some incredible nature Brusho stencil work, which I thought was really neat, that they took ferns and leaves with intricate lines and set them down and did the Brusho and spritzed it and picked it up, and it's just exquisite. So I'd encourage you to experiment with that next time you're out on a walk. Grab some leaves that have little lines, not a big gaping leaf, big leaf, because then you just have a white spot. But if you have some ferns, that would be really cool. So those are some examples that I wanted to show you of what the power of Brusho can do. And I'm going to put it up here so I don't break it. And so, yeah. So there's a couple things that you can do with the Brusho. And we're going to start, I'm going to show you the product. So I'm going to switch over to just the table for right now. This is how Brusho comes. I'm going to scooch this down so you can see it. They come in little 15 gram containers. They have a little flippy thing here. Don't pull that unless you want Brusho everywhere. It is recommended that you poke some holes in the top with thumbtack, and don't open it. In fact, cut it if you want, if you're just tempted to pull it. I know I am sometimes. And you just go ahead and push one or two little holes in it, and you're going to treat it like a salt and pepper shaker. I do recommend also that you make a little color chart or write the name of the color on the top if you want. The craft set comes with a pre-made lid color for the turquoise, but not all of the packs do that and individuals do that. So, and I also keep the thumbtack in here to keep it from spilling. Another word of advice, my shop and most of my customers are located on the Oregon coast, and that is a very wet climate, so I recommend that you keep them in a Ziploc bag. I keep mine in a Ziploc bag, but for today I'm just using this box to hold it all. So, and if you have any questions while we're doing this, please feel free to write something in the comments section. I'm happy to ask or answer those, and if I can't, I'll touch base with you offline. I also have a really neato handout that I can email you as well. Just contact me either on Facebook or on my shop email, and I will see if I can post a link in the description after our demo today. So there's a couple things. The basic thing that I really enjoy is this is a little drawing thing we're going to work with later, but my favorite thing to do is get your paper wet with a wide 1-inch brush. Boop, 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 doop. Let it soak in just for a minute so it can get into the paper and it's not going to be too fluidy. This is a Fabriano 25% watercolor paper, 25% cotton, excuse me, watercolor paper. If you want some amazing results, I would do the Arches 100% cotton or 100%, but for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to rock and roll with the Fabriano 25% studio paper. So this is, I'm going to let it soak in just for a second here. And I don't know if you guys can see that sheen on the paper. That's a nice looking sheen. Aha. So this is, the paper's curling a little bit, but that's okay. This is my black. Oop, and I'm already spilling it, but you can see that there's some colors there. And so I have a couple little holes poked in here, and then we're just gonna salt and pepper shake it, and then watch it move. I just really love it. And then as you can see down here, I sprinkled a lot. Get a brush. Can't quite reach. There we go. Is that once all the colors kind of combine, it turns into a black. It's gorgeous. And you don't need a lot to do this. It's just a real nice fine powder, and then you can kind of get it to move. So I just wanted to kind of show you that look. Another way that people use Brusho is that they'll take a dry paper, and this is similar to the way that I made the pineapple that I was showing you earlier, is to, let's sprinkle it on, just the powder, boom, boop, ba-doop, and then with a aerosol, not aerosol, but a little spritzer bottle. Uh-oh, didn't think ahead. I don't want to get it on my other art piece, so I'm gonna move it over here, boop, and uh-oh. Give it a little spritz, and then it will come alive. So that's another way of doing it. So, and you can also, where'd it go? Take it and blend the colors too. But that gives a neat kind of look too. And it's a little concentrated right there, but that's okay. Love it. So there's another way to use Brusho. And I don't have a big enough table, so that's okay. Move that right there. So, using the spritz method, I want to do a fun little resist thing at the beginning, and then we'll come back to it once this dries up a little bit. Earlier, before we started, I used some drawing gum, also known as Misket Frisket. Some people call it PBO by the brand name. It's a a masking fluid. Also, people call it masking fluid. And I'll use a nice bright color. So whatever is covered is going to be white. Once you do, ow, I just stabbed myself. Oh, be careful not to stab yourself with the pins. And so I'm going to sprinkle some on, and I'm going to do the spritz design. And here is one of my new colors that I got from my craft starter kit, my spritzer set. So this is a diamond that I did. I'm just going to make sure that it's dry. It is. Put a little bit of yellow there. I also want to do a sea green as well, because that's going to be a neat color because it has some blues and some greens in it. So just going to get some of that up here, and then we'll do this and kind of get that moving. So that's going to look really neato once dry. So I'm going to let that dry. I spritzed a little bit too much water, but that's okay because it's all fun. Let that mix there. And then I'm just going to put this to the side, and we'll revisit that later because we'll take that resist off, and then you'll see a little diamond there. So don't use too much water. Careful. And then I wanted to do another one because this is a fun way also that you can do things for holidays, little gifts for people. And I think that this is kind of a neat little way. You can pencil out your word if you want, if you don't feel comfortable just going at it with the drawing gum. There we go. So this is a red, brilliant red, and an alizarin crimson. So let's do that here and give it a little spritz. I'm going to leave a little light spritz there and see what happens. So I'm going to put that over to the side and let that dry, and we'll come back to that later as well. You can also use pre-draw something. This is like a micron pen. It's an archival marker. And with this, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a wash on it. Oops, it ran a little bit. Oh, did I use the wrong one? I used the wrong one. See? Oopsie daisies. I didn't use I used that. I didn't use the microns. Oops. That's my bad. But that's okay. That's what, I thought those were like the microns. So use a micron, let it dry totally. But this isn't going to ruin what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go back in with the yellow and sprinkle it on and let it run. I also want to do a little bit of that sea green too, because that's fun. And let it go. You can also just do this as a background and then go back in and do the inking. And that's probably the safer version. You can just pencil it out if you want to have some guide of where you sprinkle. Yes. So this is what you want to use, not what I used to make your watercolors not run. And make sure it's totally dry. So this is a micron. These are awesome. Thank you, Dan. So I'm going to set that down here. So I'm going to move on and do kind of a little bit of a painting with you with the Brusho. So before we started, there's the camera. I taped down a sheet of watercolor paper and I drew out a fish. It's just a generic fish. So if you're a fish person and you're like, that's not a real fish, I'm sorry. It's a generic fish. If I had a stamp that said fish on it, that's just a generic fish. So I wanted to start this by doing the background of it and then going back in with the watercolor using the brush. So I have sprayed a little bit accidentally, but that's okay from the little demonstrations I just did. And I'm just going to start over here where there isn't as much Brusho. So as you can see, I didn't blow that off, and so there's some of that crystal matter on the paper. So that's okay. I don't really care. If you are particular and you're using like a light color of the Brusho, like the yellow, then that's okay. Then that's not okay, and you gotta be a little bit more careful. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to have nice clean edges because I taped around this. And this is going to be, ooh, look at that. And you know what? I'm probably going to just squirt this part because there we go. That's okay. And get it activated that way. Boop, boop, a doop. That actually looks pretty cool. So with art and anything you're doing, I always say have fun with it. There's no mistakes, like Bob Ross says. Just go with the flow. I don't think he said that, but whatever. So I'm going to sprinkle, I'm going to do a little bit of the sea green over here at the top because I want that kind of look. And I like the smooth look of how it runs with the puddles of water. I love this kind of rainbowy look too. So I'm going to throw in some more red. This is the alizarin crimson, and I need this to make a little bit bigger hole because I want some red So I think this is going to end up being a rainbow trout. I'm going to throw in some brilliant red. And then I like the black look, but I hope that I can kind of be gentle with the sprinkle on it so I can get some of the colors that are in the black but not make the painting black. Ooh, this is looking really cool. So I'm going to take my palette. This is alcohol ink that I did not clean up. And I'm going to squirt a little bit of water here, and I'm going to add in some of that red to it. Oops. I'm going to use this red. That's a pinky red. So you can shake it in there, and then I'm going to use this. That's going to be a red. And then this is going to be the same color. You can sprinkle it in like that, and then add some water if you want. I don't care how you do it, just as long as you do it. And the Brusho is a kind of a staining paint. So if you spill it and it gets wet, it's going to be kind of gross. So try not to spill it and have it do weird things on your furniture and such. Do not let kids be unsupervised with it. It's not going to be a fun experience for you. It will be for them. So I'm going to go in here while this is dry, and it has a little sprinkle in there, but that's okay. I'm liking that look. I do kind of want to sop up some of this. Hey, Dan, do you think you could get me another paper towel, please? Dan, my paper towel man, will be right back. So I'm going to do a little bit of this. So as you can see here, I'm making this fish kind of green. And I'm going to kind of go in here with it. Whoop, thank you. And I'm going to kind of keep a little bit of a line there because I don't want that pretty stuff coming into my fish right here. Color that in. I'm going to pick up some more color from my palette, bring it around. This fish is inspired by Emily and Ed today. Not as cool as what they could do, but I'm having fun with it. And I'm going to go back in there later and define that a little bit more. But for right now, we're just going to go with it. This is going to be amazing. There we go. Pull in some of that color. So now the Brusho here is acting a little bit more like a traditional watercolor that we normally find out and about. So I'm going to get a bigger flat brush. This is a 3/4 inch brush because I want to get some more color on there. And I may even just give that a little spritz and get that going because I still had that dust. And add a little more, and so that makes it a neat little effect with those multiple colors in there. Oh, it's a trout! Thank you, Ed. I just saw that. That you posted it looks like a trout. So yes, that's going to be a trout. And I'm going to define his belly a little bit here, just lightly, with trying not to activate those crystals because that looks really cool looking. So there. Woo! Look at that. I don't know. There we go. Here's the fin. So it's going to be a little abstracty. That's okay. I'm going to bring in some of that red here because there's fish with kind of stripy bodies. And I want to feather that out just because I don't want it gaping crazy red. And you can thin out the color too if you want, by adding a little bit more water to it, like watercolor. So treat it kind of like a watercolor. That's cool. That's okay. I'm going to go back in there. I also have a really bad problem of holding like 5 brushes in my hand and working. And also I typically put my face into it. So this is really hard to do this video and not have my face looking at stuff. Okay, and then I'm going to do kind of a darker, I'm going to mix these 2 colors to make and black, darker color for the eyeball here. Uh-oh, I don't know what eyeballs look like on fish, so this is just going to have to roll. Give it a little eyeball. And I'm going to go outside the lines a little bit just because I want some texture there. Do that. Add some green to it. Oh, this is really turning out way cooler than I thought it was going to be. So don't you love that when that happens? I'm going to add some mouth area. Oop! Don't do that. Get that a little darker. And now this is drying a little bit, so I can kind of creep up a little bit here with it without worrying too much about the bleeding part. Kelly says, looks good. Thanks for sharing. Yes, no problem. I'm happy to do that. And if you have more questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer. Ooh, look at that. That's looking good. A little bit of more of a definition of some gills. And I don't mind kind of double dipping. See how I took some of the red and put it in the green. I don't mind doing that. This is supposed to be fun. And so you can kind of mix colors. I think that paintings that have the colors kind of jiving and intermixing are really neato. So here we go. There. And then I'm going to do a little bit more of some black. I want some more black. So I'm going to sprinkle some more, or just a little bit of this version of black in with the paint that I was using to make sure that it gets kind of darker black. I'm going to tint it a little bit red, give that fish gill some more definition. And then his face too, or his mouth. Just kind of dot there, bring that there. I want to do another little line here for his eyeball, make that a little darker, because it should be darker in my opinion. I'm going to leave a little bit of white on his eyeballs to kind of make it look a little dimensional. It's not the best job, but whatever. It's a fun fish. He's having fun. And see, he's smiling. I don't even think their jaws go back that far, but I don't care. He's smiling. He's having a good time. He's alive. If we weren't here, he wouldn't be here. It was a little Mr. Rogers-esque. So, I think. Anyway. Do a little bit of light touch up here. Add a little dimension. I'm going to go back in with some water that I put on here to kind of not make it as intense. There we go. Now he looks kind of like a salmon. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm going to sop up. You can take a paper towel if you get these little valleys with some rivers in it. You can take your paper towel, this is same with watercolor, and sop up some of that extra water. And while it's still wet, throw in some more color. Because you can. And then let's do a little bit here. Pick the glasses up off the face. You can use smaller chunks too. It's another big puddle. Do it like that, and you can blot too. I'm going to just pick up a little bit here. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I don't know about you guys, but I am. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of a definition line here before I move on to my next kind of project. Make that a little bit more dark right there. And I don't mind this little white separation line. Kind of changes up how the fish works and is flowing through the water. So I'm going to get that a little darker. So yeah, there we go. And a little dry brush effect here with this. There we go. Because the paper is now starting to dry. Okay, well I'm going to complete that. I feel pretty satisfied with that for being a fast little fish. So all I did was I taped it down, drew out a fish. You guys saw it, did the background first, and then went back in and did the inside of the fish. And then made my own little watercolor with that. So I used both ways. One trick that I really like with watercolor is taking artist tape and taping your watercolor down, and when you take it off it leaves a pretty nice crisp line typically. Sometimes, which you can't quite see right here off camera, I didn't, let's see if I can scoot that over. Right here I didn't tape it down enough, so I'm going to have a little bit of some bleeding here on the side. So just be careful if you are particular about your white edges. And then one of the things that the Brusho company says you can do, which I'm not going to do, and I don't want to do it, and is that they said that you can use some bleach to pick up some of the paint off your painting. I wouldn't do that. You're adding like an acid to your work, and you might as well just use some water and try and pick that up first before going to extremes. And plus, you probably don't even need to add, you don't even need to fix your mistakes. That's what Bob Ross says. Everything's a happy accident. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to leave that there for now. And I also wanted to do kind of an apple with you, but I don't know how much time we have lapsed, about a half hour. So I'm going to do kind of a quickie with you with that. But first, I'm going to show you the lines that this makes. This is not totally dry yet, so I don't recommend that. You can also sometimes reuse your artist tape. I'm using a really cool art board called Incredible Art Board. Love the name. So generically beautiful, like our fish here. So I'm going to reuse it tonight because I'm going to be cheap. And you can kind of, with watercolor, you can get like 1 to 2 uses out of it. It's okay. There we go. Ta-da! So there's the fish. You can display it like this. You can display it like that. You can do it upside down or straight up how we did it. Okay, so I'm going to move that to the side here. And then here is a little apple I drew out. So I want to just play around with you guys. Ooh, just a little bit more. And then I think I'm only going to do the 2 sides of tape. The top and bottom. So it stays flat. It might be buckly. Maybe I should do that. Okay. Also, Brusho stains your hands, so if you are sensitive to that, wear some gloves. But art is making a mess. So I kind of wanted to do a little quick thing with using just the Brusho as a watercolor. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to my mix that I already had of that red. going to go in here like this. And I'm going to just make the whole kind of apple, leave some white spots, red. And I want it to be a fun arty apple, so I don't care that I have some weird brush marks. I want that. I'm going to add a little darker color here to kind of try and make some dimension here. And then we're going to have down here a little darker too. And I don't have an apple to go off of, so this is just a fun apple that is from your imagination. If you want to do a real thing, do it. Do a little dry brush action here. I'm going to take some of this black that we mixed up with the trout, the happy fish, down here. Pick up some of that green. There. And you know what? Let's have it bleed into each other. That'd look cool. Boop, boop. And if you don't make sound effects while you're arting, that's okay. I do. I think it's a family trait thing. Thanks, Dad. Okay. A little dimensional here. And maybe a little lighter. There. Kind of like that look. There we go. I add some shadow here and bring that kind of out. There. And then let's see if we can do more of like a brown black and get that stem. So I'm just going in with the tip of the brush here where I left it white so I can get a nice clean kind of look. And then I'm going to go through here and try and make that a little darker definition. There we go. And let's add a little bit of green to it. Oh, now it's starting to look a little flat, but that's okay. Need to let it dry a little bit. Ooh. A little too high powered. Sorry, I didn't warn you guys about the hair dryer. Okay. Voila. Is there anybody with any questions? Just give me a holler. Boom. There we go. There's a little bit of an apple. Okay, so I'm done with that part. And then you know what? I'm going to do a little bit, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Let's do some yellow, because there's some yellow in apples too. So I'm going to do that squirt method with the spray. So I've sprinkled the sunburst yellow. And what's this one? Let's do a little orange. Why not? Because let me get another thumbtack. Push that in there. Didn't use the orange yet. I've been using a different palette of colors that aren't as bright and vibrant. Okay. And then I'm going to use the back of an old Brusho to kind of shield the apple. I'm okay with it going a little on there, but I don't really want to have a lot of that. So I'll just make a little bit of a shield with it. Whoop! Dripping it. Okay. And see, there's little particles way down here. I don't even need to shield it because it's already kind of there. There we go. Little spritzer right there. Okay. Voila! There's a fun apple. So if you have somebody that loves some sort of fruit, you can make a quick couple minute piece of art for them. Boom. Okay, let that dry off to the side. I also wanted to try a little bit of an experiment, and I'm going to use the back of this. That I thought, oh, well, I wonder what would happen. Oop, where's my paper towel? I don't really want that to run, so I'm going to sop that up. Always have your paper towels ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to leave that be. Dan, do you mind grabbing that for me so I don't ruin it? Thank you, honey bunny. I want to try doing a stamp. Not necessarily a stamp, but a transfer. So I thought, well, baby wipes are, they have water in them. So this is Pampers. I don't know if this will work, but I thought I would give it a try to make a kind of a different background. So let's sprinkle some on. And then I want to take, I'm going to go a little hog wild, a little yellow in there. So the paper, this is wet. I didn't want to use a cleaning cloth because we need those right now. And I have baby wipes because baby wipes are cool to have. So I want to kind of do a transfer. So let's see. Oh, you know what? Let's not do it that way. Let's do it this way, where we leave it there. And then this is the back of that painting. I'm going to stretch that out and then just rub it on top of the wet wipe. And then, okay, I have not tried this before, and let's see what it does. Ooh, look at that. So that adds a neat little effect. So experiment, see what comes out. That looks really neato too, all by itself. So, yeah. If I used a hot press paper or a Bristol paper, I believe it would transfer a lot better. And since this is just damp, didn't have enough to make it into all of the little crevices that the watercolor, the cold press paper has. And then I'm just going to see if it transferred some particles. Yeah, check that out. Then you can add a little bit, have a little bit different kind of control look to it by giving it a little spritz. Way cool. Thanks for experimenting with me. Ooh, careful. Got more of a mess. Okay. Gooey. So I'm going to come back over here to our one we did originally. Oh, thank you, Ed. I appreciate that comment. Just kind of a different thing to do. Why not? So this is the love one I did. I still got a little bit of a wet spot on the diamond. And I'll find my paper towel to give that a little bit of a dab to get that clean. So you can now see a little bit more of where the resist was, the masking fluid is. And so now, in order to get the drawing gum off, best practice is to use a rubber cement pickup and use it kind of like an eraser. One pro tip, one of the reasons why I didn't do the drawing gum with you was because it takes a while for it to dry and I didn't know if it would dry in time. So I did it ahead of time. Don't ever use a handy dandy dryer. You will bake it into the paper. Ask me how, I know that. So you want to use a rubber cement pickup. It is a necessary item in your toolbox of art supplies. It works with the rubber cement in your paper projects and for the drawing gum. Using your finger can sometimes work if it's a thick amount of drawing gum. There's a really cool drawing gum pen out there that PBO makes, and that leaves a really thin line of drawing gum. And I have tried my finger, I've tried erasers, I've tried everything to try and get that off, and it does not come off, so you need to buy this. It's just, you need to have it in your toolbox. Also, I've gone through about 50 of these in my lifetime, and I'm only in my 30s. And so I put a little asterisk there. This is mine. I've had it for many years now and haven't lost it. Especially if you're in a classroom environment, that's where they disappear. Because people inadvertently think that, oh, that's mine, I'll grab that and take it home. But in actuality, it wasn't. But that's okay. So here, this is pretty dry for the most part. So I think this is going to be okay to kind of pick up with you. So if it messes up, sorry, wait a little longer for your paper to dry. Another trick too that Ed mentioned at one point to me that I didn't realize, pull it rather than peel it if you have a thick amount and it's not coming off very well. Okay, so let's do this erasing. Okay. I'll come down in here a little bit so you can see it. I don't know. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of peel that back. Ooh, and see, you can kind of pull it. Well, not really. There. See, that's why you need an eraser. Rubber cement pickup. And it's also really satisfying to do. One of my favorite things in college was that in my 2D class, we had to do a bunch of collage stuff with rubber cement. And I would just get it everywhere, let it dry, and then I'd go back in and fix it, and then it looked beautiful. Just so cool. I usually use the tip and the edge to get it going. You can kind of do that if you want, but I like to have a little bit more control over where I do this. And especially if you're working with paper in the rubber cement pickup, you might pick up an edge on accident if you're violent with it. Also, letting it ball up on there also helps it come up a little easier sometimes too. Okay. Looks like I got it all. Boom. Ta-da! There's the diamond in the rough. Just like us. Or maybe just me. Okay. And I don't mind the drip. I think it's organic. That I don't really like, but who cares? I could crop it off if I want. You can do a lot of different things with what you do. And you can do this with the watercolor too. Okay, now we're going to do love, because I love this so much. So you can see here the drawing gum, usually to tell drawing gum is dry, it turns a little darker color than it originally was when you put it on. So let's, oh, look at that. Now, one of my concerns with doing this drawing gum technique with the Brusho is that the Brusho is a powder, and I was a little worried about rubbing the Brusho into the paper and making a streak, but it looks like it's not doing that. I got a little bit of that here on this, but I think that's okay because it's a pretty organic looking piece, and it's okay that there's not it's not totally clicked. Okay, so here we go. So just be careful when you're pulling this up with the Brusho. Maybe do that first or blow it off. There we go. Yeah. So just be a little more mindful with that. And then you can go back into to get that white again. Get a little tiny chunk of the Mr. Clean sponge, that weird white thing. If you got a little chunk of that, you could probably pull some of that out. But I don't know how well that would work, especially with this as a very staining watercolor. So let's kind of get that up. So I'm going to kind of pull it kind of away from itself and pull some of those little chunks off so that I don't take it and stain it any further. Yeah, see, I did a little stain because I didn't pick it up. Okay. There we go. Ta-da! And there's kind of a big chunk taken off. Oop, throwing stuff. There we go. Then all your friends will ask you, how did you do that? And you don't need to tell them if you don't want to. Just tell them it's magic, it's art, and that they can play too. And then you can tell them. There. Very cool. So I hope you loved the Brusho presentation today. I'm really excited that you were able to join me today. And if you have questions, you can call me anytime. I'm going to go back into my fish that I did with a black pen and kind of do some scribble doodles around it to give it a little bit more dimension and life. And I really like how this turned out. So I also wore black in case I got some of it on me. So if you're wearing white, not recommended. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, always feel free to let me know. I'm happy to answer, and go make some art. Have fun. And I'd love to see what you end up creating with this. Brusho is really unique, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. So the world is your oyster when it comes to Brusho, watercolor, and art. So happy arting, and I don't have any other questions I don't see on the screen. Ed says, great job, thank you for doing this, thank you, and thank you for coming and paying attention. And I know that Ed is one of the experts in this, and if he saw anything that he'd like to share, I'm sure he'll tell me to do that. So give me a little bit, and I'll put a link to the attachment PDF about the Brusho onto the description of the event, or the YouTube video. Again, we live in a moist climate. Keep it in a Ziploc bag. Don't open the container unless you want to be dyed a bunch of different colors. Don't open it. Don't open it. Don't open it. Cut it off. I'm so tempted to pull it right now. I can't even tell you. I'm going to cut that off. Thank you, Ed. Okay. Happy arting. I want to see what you guys do with the Brusho. Be safe. Stay 6 feet away.